The big balancing act over the big beautiful bill. Today, a win for the administration as the big beautiful bill passed the Senate with the help of a tiebreaker.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
Now the bill heads back to the House, where it faces an uphill battle after the Senate changes. Changes that Speaker Mike Johnson warned the Senate against.
We're going to pass this bill, one way or the other, and I have prevailed upon my Senate colleagues to please put it as close to the House product as possible. I've been very consistent from the very beginning, and I'll continue to do that. So there's still a lot of amendments and a lot of game to play yet, and we're hopeful.
Please, please, please stay close to the House framework. Did the Senate pass that test? Well, no, according to the House Freedom Caucus chair.
The bottom line is now the House is going to have its say. This is not going to sail through the House. We're going to have to negotiate with the Senate one more time, and that's just appropriate. That's the way the legislative process works and the way it should work on a bill of this size. So I'm a no on the rule, which is the motion to proceed to taking a vote on the Senate bill.
All right, while that was playing out on Capitol Hill, President Trump was keeping tabs on it from Florida, where he toured the newly minted alligator Alcatraz. Beefing up border security, he says, is something that will have the biggest impact on balancing the budget.
In total, the average illegal alien costs American taxpayers an estimated $70,000. That's each. $70,000. I think that number is even low. If you care about balancing the budget, the single most impactful step we can take is to fully reverse the Biden migration invasion.
Today's tour, though, was also where the president learned of the bill's passage.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Thank you. You know, I'm waiting, listening to these wonderful words, and they are music to my ears, but I was also wondering how we're doing, because I know this is prime time. It shows that I care about you because I'm here and I probably should be there.
But to get the bill still across that finish line, lawmakers are going to have to walk a very fine line. Let's take a similar walk together right now over at the wall. As Speaker Johnson mentioned, he hoped that the Senate framework would stay close to the House framework. Very few differences was what his hope would be to ensure that it would also then go back and pass through the House. So let's take a look at the differences between what the Senate passed and the House passed. Some of the biggest areas of contention and difference have been, for example, on state and local tax deductions. Northern state Republicans want to preserve the ability to write off their state and local taxes against their federal tax dollars. At the House level, they boosted that cap to $40,000 for married couples and up to $500,000 for those couples making up to $500,000. In the Senate, they passed the same $40,000 cap, but they capped the timeline of that SALT deduction through 2029. Seems to be, according to Nick LaLotta, not a good enough middle ground. He said, I need $40,000 from my constituents, and it has to be $40,000 forever. Medicaid has also been a big sticking point, a place that people have looked for cuts, but other Republicans have been concerned about cuts. The House suggested that childless adults would need to work up to 80 hours per month to qualify for Medicaid. They also sought to lower federal tax costs by freezing the provider tax at current rates. We've talked about that together. That's the amount that states can tax a hospital and then raise their prices and ask for bigger contributions from the federal taxpayer. The Senate changed the qualification on the work requirement for those that have children up to the age of 15, and it limited that Medicaid provider tax at 3.5% from 6%. A lot of people have been worried, for example, Senator Josh Hawley, about the effect on rural hospitals. So the Senate put together a $50 billion fund for rural hospitals. That number, by the way, doubled today. It started at $25 billion. They got the vote of Alaska Republican Lisa Murkowski by doubling that to $50 billion. And then finally, there's the debt ceiling. The House offered to raise the debt ceiling to $4 trillion. The debt limit right now, according to the Senate, they would raise to $5 trillion. So the bill is ready now to head back to the House, but that doesn't mean it's going to be met with open arms. The Freedom Caucus, as you heard, says it's not fiscal responsibility and not what they agreed to, and my next guest is a member of the Freedom Caucus. Joining me now on set is Texas Republican Congressman Brandon Gill. Congressman, thanks for being with us here today. You see the differences in what you guys passed, now what we've seen from the Senate. What will this mean for you tomorrow? Will you vote for this bill?
Well, tomorrow morning, we're going to vote either to pass the bill as it is. We'll vote to pass it with an amendment, which will send it back to the Senate, or we can go to conference. I don't think that's something anybody wants to happen. Listen, I'm going to be with the president. This is the president's bill. This has so many of his priorities all in one big, beautiful bill. I think it is to our advantage to get this passed before July 4th, his deadline that he has set. So I'm going to be with him. With that said, there are changes that could be made that could make this bill better. We could roll back more of the Green New Deal, for instance. That would provide an enormous amount of savings. There are things we can do that would move us in the right direction. But ultimately, whether we have an amendment, whether we pass it as is, we're going to get this bill done.
Okay, you're a yes.
I'm a yes.
But you suggested that it might require an amendment to get some of your colleagues in the House to vote for this bill.
right.
But then we get into the process of sending it back to the Senate. And so, for example, you talk about bigger cuts to the Green New Deal. The issue seems to be, will you then lose some Republican senators who, for whatever reason, in their states are supporting portions of the Green New Deal, projects that might be under construction or have already begun in some of those states they don't want to pull the plug on. The question is whether or not that amendment that might be required in the House could then turn and pass the Senate.
Yep, and this is the tightrope that we're walking. It's the conservatives against what you might call some of the more moderate members, particularly in the Senate. If the question is, do we pass this bill or do we not pass this bill, every single Republican wants to get this bill passed. It's an issue of what precisely is in there. And you're right, the Senate passed it by a 50-50 margin with a tiebreaker. So we are running up against real political reality here of what can actually get through the Senate. The reality is, unfortunately, the Senate is not as conservative as the House is. I wish that weren't the case, but it is. So we're going to, we'll see what we can do tomorrow. Again, I'm going to be a yes. This is the president's bill. There are huge, huge wins in this. But, some people are still working through. There have been a lot of changes to this bill, even in the last minute, even this morning. So there are a lot of things that we're still working through.
Okay, you're a yes, so I want to see how you feel about this. This was posted by Elon Musk. He said on X, every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame. And they will lose their primary next year if it's the last thing I do on earth.
This bill reduces mandatory spending by a bigger margin than any bill ever in American history. It's a $1.35 trillion reduction in mandatory spending per the Senate's bill. That's a huge win for conservatives. Now, again, I'd love to see us cut more spending. If I were writing this bill, we'd cut $4 or $5 trillion. But again, we're running up against a political reality here. And this is a huge win. Not only for the American people, but for fiscal hawks like myself who want to see us get the debt under control.
Are you concerned, though, of the political reality or political potentiality of being primaried by a candidate supported by Elon Musk?
Well, listen, I'm going to be with the president. The president is the leader of the party. If I have the president's support, I feel very, very good about where we're going to be at politically. But let me also just talk about some of the other provisions in this bill. The president mentioned in the clip that you showed earlier, border security and what that impact would be on the debt long term. For years and years, Republicans have been pushing for more funding for border security so that we could simply uphold the laws that are already on the books. And we could never get anything done because Democrats on the other side said, if you want border security, if you want to build a wall or do anything else, we're going to demand amnesty. So we were never able to come to a deal because that's a no-go for me and for many other Republicans. This bill allows us to bypass having to work with Senate Democrats on getting border security. That is a multi-generation win for conservatives. If there was nothing else in this bill but that, I think that would be a huge
But
win.
as the president points out, there are many other things in this bill, like extending the tax cuts.
Yep.
Another big selling point for this bill. All right, Congressman Gill, you're not going anywhere. You're going to stick around with us. We have a few other topics we're looking forward to talking with you about here today.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.